All right. Good afternoon, Dominique. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. It is so great to finally connect with you and
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your skill set. You've got some great
Yeah.
tenure. You've been with the Volusia County Schools for about 2 years now.
Correct. Yes. two
Okay, and
years.
you're an office admin for them. So, what does a day
Yeah.
look like for you?
So, typical day for me is normally like on a Monday. I come in, I look over the paperwork that I might have had from Friday, trying to see. But normally, I try not to leave any work for myself, and it usually starts out with looking at transportation issues. So I check my emails, make sure there's no surprises kind of going with that. I also check those to see if any teachers have reached out to me, if the principal has sent me anything that I need to work on for that day, and then I kind of go from there. And then I look over like our sub rosters. So I don't necessarily print those out and pass them out. I'm not in charge of that, but I am in charge of inputting them into the computer. So I make sure that those are all getting to the correct teachers who are subbing for the day. And then I have to make sure that when they come back to me, they are signed. And then I fill them out on our program, which is called Focus. So it kind of has similar to how the paper looks, but it's just on the computer. So I do present or absent for any of the students. And then I also, from there, I'll listen to my phone calls. So I am in charge of the attendance voicemail as well. So a lot of the times the parents will call in and say their kid is going to be absent for whatever reason. And then I have to go in and adjust their attendance accordingly. So if they're going to be late, I have to mark them late for certain periods, or I have to mark them absent for an excuse, whether they have a doctor's note, doctor's appointment, any of that fun stuff. And then from there, normally after I've checked over my attendance stuff, is kind of when I look over like the transportation. So I'm in charge of bus passes, which are like these temporary passes for students. If we have new students who have enrolled, I have to make sure that they have a bus pass ready and printed for them temporarily until they are automatically coded to ride their bus. So those are my responsibility. So I have to check over and check my, and that involves my email as well, because the registrar will email me any of that information. And then once I've done all of that, kind of starts the craziness with the kiddos when they get there for around 9 o'clock. So they're in the office. I joke around and I tell everyone that even though I do the office specialist work, I'm a part-time like counselor in a way. So of course they come and keep me updated about their weekend things. So I do a little bit of a chit chat with them real quick, and then of course I get right back to doing my regular work. So a lot of the times that it mostly involves right now with me doing attendance and transportation, but I've also been filling in to help in the back for another coworker who's been out. So I've been taking over a little bit of her job. So I also have to make sure that I have like, it's called ESE on our end, but I have paperwork that involves with that I'm learning and
Okay.
also taking care of on my end. So I make sure to stay caught up with that. And then it kind of starts with the rosters start coming in, whether it's a sub for that period for the teachers. So I again go back to checking over those attendance things. And then I also am in charge of the sign in and sign out sheets. So if kids come in late, I usually get those from the front and I have to input those in whether to adjust their attendance. And then I
Mhm.
also need to, if they leave early, do the same thing. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I'm pretty much involved all day long. There's not really much downtime, which is
Mhm.
good. It makes my day go by fast.
Yeah.
So I'm always doing something. And then if anything, I have stuff I have to print off or I'm filing if I have some downtime to put away doctor's notes that I may have gotten turned in to me from students. So it's a lot of filing, paperwork, computer work, and then phone calls are few. They're not as busy with the phones as like most office positions are.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes occasionally I will get a parent who will call about setting their child up for a bus, or they have something with an attendance issue. So I usually will give them a call back if need be, and kind of discuss things with them a little bit further in detail, and then kind of situate all of that and make sure that they're happy about how it looks and all of that, because they want their kids' attendance record to look good, which I don't
Yeah.
blame them. So it's nice that they're involved. And then, yeah, so I mean, anything else, if anyone comes back, whether it's a teacher or, admin, and they ask me to help them out with little things here and there, if I have the time, I'll obviously do that for as well. And that kind of just involves like passing out certain papers to certain classes and counting out things depending on the roster of students. Sometimes they have events going on, so they want to make sure the students' attendance is done right, especially if there's like a field trip. So little things like that here and there that aren't as often as like a typical day, but do happen. And so I take care of those as well. So
Um, So as far as like the software, of course, you're utilizing
Yeah.
the school system software.
Mhm.
What about other softwares? Microsoft, Google, how do you rate
Yeah.
yourself?
So I would say I feel very confident with those, like 8.5, 9, just
Mhm.
because with the schools, I know we have our separate focus, but we have Outlook, which we use for our email system. We use Excel sometimes, and it helps us with like field trip attendance. That's the word I'm looking for. And so we keep track of what students are going to be going. We keep track of like their information on there as well. Sometimes we use that for like essentially, as we call it, our disciplinary paper, but it's just to keep track of what kids we have where, so that way we know at all times where each student is. So we use that a little bit with Excel. Google is my friend. I use that outside of work as well. So Google Docs, anything similar with that, I'm comfortable with using those. Microsoft Word is another big one that we use. And then I haven't used QuickBooks essentially here just because we have our focus program, which has everything, but I have used it in the past with other jobs, including the landscaping company that I worked for. It was really big with that. We had everything on there as far as employee information, customer information. We used it for payments and estimates and invoices and all of that. So I'm quite familiar with using a little bit of that as well. So
Mhm. Okay. That was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask you about
yeah.
your QuickBooks. That's good. Were you doing online or desktop?
Normally it's with the desktop or online. I mean, I've used it either way, but there's where they had like the desktop version went on there because it had all of our information saved to it. That's where we would reconcile our invoices as well through
Mhm.
QuickBooks and all of that. So it was pretty much just used right there on the computer.
Oh, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this interview. You've been really
Okay.
great about. Oh, I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
At work, are you taking any inbound calls or outbound calls, or
So
how does that
yeah,
work?
yeah, so actually this year they had placed me up front to help out with like
Perfect.
everything up there because it does get busy. So we have parents that are calling, so like her phone would be ringing and then she has multiple lines and I have multiple lines. So whenever she was on the phone, if I heard my phone ring, they're attached to each other, so they would ring the same phone number and I would just answer it and help them out on my end. So a lot of the inbound calls were usually up the front, which I took care of those as much as I knew how to. If they're trying to reach somebody else, I'd obviously transfer it to that person and make sure that like if they didn't answer, they left a message. If I had to, I would also take a message. And if I saw that person, let them know like, hey, so-and-so called about this. If you can give them a call back, it'd be greatly appreciated. I kind of try to stay as organized as I could at my end as far as it
Yeah.
goes for collecting info and making sure it got to where it needed to. And then outbound calls, a lot of the times, if I happen to miss a phone call, they'll leave a voicemail. And so if I need to, I will call them back. It usually had to do with like setting their student up for transportation, or if it was an attendance issue that was going on, or if they needed to know where to send like a doctor's note with my email address, I would make those calls as well. There wasn't any really like cold calling type thing, just with what I've done in the past. Same thing for any of the other office jobs that I've held. A lot of them have just been, inquiries that I would have to answer,
Sure.
or it was either through phones or through email, and both were the same way. So I would just kind of respond whenever I could, and it was usually within that day because I like to leave the day without having to come in and like rush to get something else done. So I like to make sure I leave and have everything done for the day.
I love that.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So, just in a quick recap, I mean,
yeah,
definitely lots of office experience,
yeah,
right? Technical computers, you're good with that.
yeah,
It sounds like you definitely can do fast paced. You're very organized in order to stay fast paced. I love what
yes,
you said about, having yourself all set up before the next day. I actually do the
yeah.
same thing. I love that. And of course, being really detail oriented with all the things that you're doing because you're keeping track of some pretty important
Yeah,
data with what you're doing with the students. And then, of course, the customer service skills that you've had with this job, and also your other previous jobs that you've held. So, all around, you're a great candidate. I know that you love what you're doing now, but the reason why you're seeking something different is that you're looking for something that's an annual job that's 12 months out of the year. And
yeah,
unfortunately, with the school system, the way that the nature of the business, it's not
yeah,
all year long. So
exactly.
I think that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and pause this part of the interview.
Okay.
Dominique, don't go anywhere. We've got a few more things to
Okay.
chat about.
Yeah, no worries.